Good morning, KWPP. How's everybody doing? Be loud. Make it sound like there's a lot of people in here.
There is a lot of people. We're packed to the gills.
It's spring break and Karina's off with her family. And so I'm filling in and be doing a lot more speaking than typical. So bear with me. Apologize.
I'm just here to look pretty.
Tanya's here to look pretty. Dwight's here to be Dwight. So let's get rolling.
Good with the bad.
All right, KW Tech walk-in hours. Austin has set aside some time from his tight schedule to be available to you for an hour on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Take advantage of this. Come in with any of your questions about Command or DocuSign or whatever it might be. Austin, do you have anything to add with that?
No.
Perfect.
No, the next one.
He's not the best color man in the business for any reason. Anyways, okay. KW Tech Workshop
Wait,
extended.
Doug has something to say.
Extended.
I do have something to say on this one.
Only
All right.
friends.
It's gonna be great. We're gonna I did this a few weeks ago and I'm gonna fine tune it a little bit more. It does say it's like crash course in the capabilities. This isn't a 101. This is something that, like, even if you're new to Command though, this is gonna be a great opportunity to see the potential that Command, like what it can do. Mainly because, you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, are just kind of under the hood that Command does that you just will not run into necessarily just by adding people into your database and doing opportunities. Like, there's so much more. And so going into that to see what the potential is that Command can do will definitely open up, like, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And so just getting in there. And so we'll kind of do some cool things that Command can do. It's a 2-hour thing. So come with your laptop so you can follow along. It'll be good.
Sounds great.
And they're making a lot, like, weekly changes and updates to
Yeah.
Command right now.
Yeah.
I think I described it because I went to the operating partners meeting several months ago, and they described it as Gary Keller had an audit done after the previous leader of that effort left the company and was told that he was doing it on the wrong building blocks. And so they had to go back to the very beginning and rebuild a lot of the basic apparatus within the Command operating system. And they've done that. And in his own words, he said, now that we've gotten through the hardest part, we're getting to the fun stuff. And so you're going to see tweaks rolling out and opportunity kinds of tweaks rolling out faster than ever. And we're seeing it because every week they're announcing new things that Command is doing. That's
Still waiting on the websites.
Yeah,
I
but
know
they should be.
I've said it a couple
But
times.
they said by the end of
it's
April.
coming. It's
They said by the end of April.
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
So
Really good.
we believe in that.
It'll be good.
We just
Cool.
want to know.
Yeah. Thanks, Austin.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
I have a cool feature.
Yeah, thanks. That's good. Looking forward to it. All right, Tanya.
Yes, we're gonna go over another playbook. Where's
we're-
that? We're out of order. Oh, you skipped me already. Another playbook that we got from Family Reunion, based on the newsletters. So it's more than just like how to do a newsletter in Command. Really goes into the deep. There's some scripts in it. Y'all walk out with a playbook. And then there's key pages of points of how you can implement in Command and how you can get the whole aspect of it rolling. So, even if you just come to grab that notebook and leave,
It'll be worth it.
it's worth it.
Yep. Good stuff. Cool. All right. All right, Austin, we're going to jump around here.
You got this?
I got this. We can do this. All right. Book club with our friends from the Academy starting on next Tuesday, Atomic Habits. If you've not read this book, I don't read a lot of books. I've actually started to read this book. I haven't finished it, but it's very good. I started it like a month ago or so, and it is fantastic. It's about making incremental changes. And I think if you want to get started on building yourself up, this is a really good common sense building block to help yourself grow. So
Yeah, and in almost all the speakers you hear
they always talk
point
about it.
something out from this.
Everybody
book.
talks about
is
this
like
book.
a foundational book in
Yep.
terms of
Yeah.
creating better habits.
Like they should be teaching this book in like high school, probably.
Yeah.
All right. So come. We are rolling out a new partnership with Macadam Floors and Designs. They're going to lock the secrets to stunning home interiors, and they're going to join our tour of the Macadam showroom in Lake Oswego on Tuesday, April 4th at 10 a.m. They'll be providing coffee and breakfast. It should be a lot of fun. We've done these things before, and they've been really good energy,
Uh-huh.
inviting, like learn new things. So
Field trip.
yep. And if I understand correctly, they have a 25% discount for your clients. And wait for it, a 35% discount for you on all their materials. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I said this when we announced it, the biggest differentiator that I'm aware of, because I have builders that have used CFM, which is Contractors Furnishing Smart, and Macadam Flooring. Macadam Flooring, you have to use their installers.
Mhm.
So they'll come out, like, so if you have no idea who you want to do installation work,
Or you don't want to manage it.
or you don't want to manage it, then they'll come out and do it. They also have decorators there that, you know, you can work with if you want. CFM, you can just buy it and have it delivered, and then you can worry about the installation yourself, or they'll give you referrals for contractors.
Yeah, they have a great list.
And then they always have decorators. Their decorators are independent contractors. So many years, my builders have used a number of their different decorators. And they rented or they had an office space within CFM, and you could just go meet with them and they'd walk through and tell you what was being picked for one of the spec homes that builder was doing. And that's how we would sell them. So it gave you the advantage, I guess, advantage or disadvantage, depending on your perspective.
Yeah.
Of being able to have your own contractors install it.
Yeah.
But they both have decorators.
Yeah. Should be a lot of fun. We'll hope to see everybody here. There. Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
All right, April birthdays.
Oh, who's up there? Dwight. Beth, Chris, Caden, Nikos, Armel. Oh, there's a lot of my newbies in there. Megan,
Beth, yeah.
Bacon, Andrea, Ted. Where is Ted? He's usually here. Who did you spell wrong? Ramsley? Ramsell?
Ramsdale.
Nice. Good job. Happy birthday to April birthdays.
Yes, happy birthday, everybody.
You gotta start putting the star sign on these just for fun.
Star?
The star sign, you know?
Like astrology.
What they're, well, but it's like two different ones.
Well, you know, but you just change it. Shade it a different color.
I like that. Mhm. And then we could go into
Just
like,
for fun, and then you
Mhm.
could add what it says about the star sign.
mhm.
Such a Scorpio.
Yeah, yeah, now it makes sense. Yeah,
If you
Yeah.
want to know if it's popular, remember what happened when we had our picnic out at the
yeah,
vineyard.
Yeah.
Remember what the line was to get
The tarot.
Tarot card reading?
No,
to
yeah,
get your
tarot
fortune?
reading.
Yeah,
that was good stuff.
Backed up.
yeah. That's how interested people are.
Staff member's name,
Yeah, we don't know who it is. Oh. Who is it?
really,
Yeah.
really? What the hell? Pardon me. What the, Austin?
The dinosaur's fine.
What is the dinosaur doing to me?
It's upset, like.
I am leaving. I'm not leaving KW. I am joining partnership with a builder and helping run the office. I'll still be an agent here and I will be helping with production as well. So I'm excited.
We are excited
know
for
you.
you.
They're mad at me.
And we're
We're
excited
not,
for you.
we're excited for
Are
you.
you kidding me? All
We're
I
excited
got
for
was
you.
WTF from Mr. Peter Clark.
Well, yeah, it's Peter.
He said that when you decided to work with us instead of him.
Yeah, I'm excited for your new opportunity, Tanya.
That's two WTF so far, Tanya.
Anyways,
But I'll be helping bring more production to the office instead of
Hmm.
you know, the other big luxury like Oswego agents.
Tanya set a really high standard for the PC coaching role, and she's provided a lot of order, and she knows KW systems like there's no tomorrow, and so you're going to be really missed,
Yeah.
and you have big shoes to fill. But if anybody knows of anybody they think might be interested in this role, please, refer them to our way, because we need to find a good person to do this. So
Yep,
Yeah.
and we're starting to interview,
starting interviewing. Yep.
so.
So farewell, Tanya, and best of luck.
yeah.
Farewell, but I'm still
Thankfully, she's
here.
not going too far.
Yeah.
We'll still see her.
We'll still be
do the
around.
Meeting.
Yes.
I can
Totally
be
made
partying with you guys more.
That's right. You don't have to worry about it.
I'm waiting for my care calls.
Okay. Okay.
Well, yes. Okay, that's enough about me.
Come on in.
So I'm gonna steal the mic. I'll move it over here. But I just wanted to show you a cool little thing that Command can do recently. As of I think the end of I want to say February is when they rolled this out. So I'm gonna pull open Command here, and I'm gonna share my screen for everyone online. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so there's kind of two facets of this in Command. Whether you're a solo agent or team agent, it's gonna look slightly different. I'm gonna show the team side of things so I can show it all at once. But just know that most of this you can use it as a solo agent, but it's really cool to see just the potential that it has with people who are on a team. So when you are in Command, you can go up to your name and go down to settings. And when I say there, this thing goes, these go into almost everything. It does, this whole side doesn't really give justice about what this all can do. Because one, like when you expand out the command settings, these pop up. And then when you pop this out, everything, there's so many settings and functionalities in Command that are hidden behind the scenes in settings that you can go in here and do a ton to really customize Command the way that you want. And the one I want to focus on is under Command settings here, under contacts here, and it is called lead management. So when you go into lead management, you can actually set up these routes and essentially rules based off of where a lead source comes from. What do you want this lead to do, and what kind of things do you want to do? And on a team, it goes even, it expands even more, where you're able to do things like assign certain agents, or even set up some randomized claiming parameters. So like if you have multiple buyers agents, you can have it set up where it almost round robins or certain things like that. So I'll show you how that looks. So when you want to create a route or a route, depending on who you are, I don't know. I go back and forth. Route? Yeah. Route 66, but route everything else. Yeah. But you create a route. Then it'll take you through the steps, but you just name it whatever. I'm just gonna name it team meeting, because that's what we're on. But just name it whatever whatever you want it to be, and then you can set up on a team. This is something that's specific for teams. You can set a routing rule, and you get to choose: do you want it to randomly send to a team member on the team? And it does give you a little information. It does say that an agent is never offered a lead first 2 times in a row. So it does randomize and keeps in mind that if someone on the team just got offered a lead, then it won't do it again. The second time it won't prioritize them again. But then you can also weighted random, which means that the strategy allows setting an agent's percentage chance to receive a lead. Jump ball, so it sends it to all of them simultaneously, and the first person to claim it wins the lead. Round robin, that means it rotates. So if, let's say, you have 5 people on the team, it just rotates based off of those 5 and just stays in order. And then assign to an agent, you can manually assign it to a specific person. Then you can also select how long do they have to claim this deadline. It looks like it's defaulted to 3 minutes. You can turn that up to 10 minutes, whatever you want. But if they do not claim this lead within 10 minutes, it will then move on to the next one. And I believe this does link into your Command mobile. So it's not like if they're not sitting at their desk, they're going to lose it or anything like that. They'll get a notification on their phone that a lead has come in. Then you'll be able to move on to the lead source. So where is this lead source coming from? So imagine, let's say you have an open house, you create an open house landing page, and this is where that'd be coming from. You can type in landing page, and you can select that as a lead source. Now you'll notice it pops down here, and you can continue to select lead sources. So you can say maybe a KW landing page as well. You maybe have multiple landing pages of different types. So you can have multiple lead sources feed into the same rule. And then, or you can select all. You can have it select and just go to every single lead source that comes in, depending on what this route is. But I'm just going to say these are landing pages for open houses. I can then go to next, and then I can assign certain agents to the route. I can, if it's a longer team, I can search for the agents. But I'm happy to be on a test team for the market center, so it's just show up the staff. But let's say that for these particular ones, we're just going to assign me, Kareen, and Kelly. And so we can assign just these people are going to be in the rotation for these leads. And then if we decide to do something like round robin, it'll cycle through all 3 of us. Or I could set it up for a jump ball. So whoever gets there first wins. Then I can now do what this is cool. And this is something that is available on both solo and team accounts, is you can do auto tags and auto smart plans. So let's say that it is an open house and I want them to be on the open house tag. It's going to automatically, if this lead source comes in, this rule is now going to say auto assign them to the open house tag, and now also auto assign them to, let's say, the open house smart plan. Now on this team account, I don't have the open house smart plan. You should already have that put in. Like, it's one of the 10 Keller Williams smart plans that they just provide to you by default. But you'd be able to search for it here, assign it to that. And then, so once that lead comes in, this completely removes that step. It used to be that if a lead came in, you would have to, like, you get a notification lead came in, but you'd have to go in and auto assign them like the open house tag. And maybe even if you didn't have a trigger set up, auto assign them to this, or you have to sign them up to the smart plan. Now it all is done in one fell swoop. They do everything. They fill out the form on the landing page, immediately comes into command, immediately gets assigned to a person, auto tagged, auto smart plan, done. Like, it's all done automatically. So if you have that all set up, it's going to save you a ton of time, and you immediately become a person that, is on the ball, and you're communicating with them the next day. And so this is a really cool option. But if you don't want to assign them to a smart plan, you don't want to do auto tags, these aren't required, but is a huge portion of this whole route. So I would recommend you do. But once you click save, then you'll be able to see the whole list of all of your routes that you have set up, and you'll be able to see how many agents are selected on it, smart plans related to it, and things like that at a glance. And you can turn them off, toggle them on and off whenever you need to. And then you'll be able to see, which ones are paused, which ones you may have archived, so you can always recover them. So maybe there's something just like you have a one for an event during the holidays, and you don't want that in your active, just in case something somehow comes through. It'd be really weird in the middle of July to have Pi Drive newsletter go up to someone. So maybe just pause it, archive it, whatever you want to do in the meantime, re-enable it when the time comes. The world is your oyster with these. So just feel free to mess around with this and see how this can help you in saving you a lot of time. So cool little feature. That is all.
Yeah, just in terms of functionality, KW rolled out command and it wasn't working very well, and a lot of people in the office actually the whole company had a bad taste in their mouths because it wasn't working really well. And that was partly because they had built it on the wrong foundation. But now the latest news I had is that the Laura Gillot team, which is a team down out of
It's over 100 agents, I think.
she does
Mm-hmm.
already.
Mm-hmm.
So she's out of Corvallis, Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the old days when she came here and spoke, she didn't have that many people, but
She has a lot.
they're the event queens and kings of the world. Like every weekend they have an event. She's grown to 100 agents. They're switching to command now. They're giving up all of their other software that they use that doesn't integrate very well, but they pay thousands of dollars a month for it. And they're rolling over to command because they think it's at a point where it'll work better for their team. So, this is why we're starting to talk about it every week, because we want our agents to know that this functionality is working well.
Yeah, and I just want to look at this from a time management point of view. Like, if not just time management, but also being exact and precise. Is like, if you can create a system that automates things for you, that allows you to not take time having to do it. And if it's automated and it's precise, it's going to go into the right space. You can remove the human error from it. Like, there's so many benefits from working systems like this that's going to create a lot of time for you to do what we really need to be doing right now. That's lead gen, right? Because this is probably the toughest market a lot of you have ever seen. And so lead genning is more and more important. So every moment you spend not clicking a button in command because you spent the time on the backside automating it is a moment you get to spend generating business. So I encourage you guys to come to Austin's open hours, to come to the expanded clinic he's hosting, and get in and dig in and really get to know this product and use it.
Yeah, I've been through quite a few systems over the years, and no matter what system it is, you still have to go in and create it to work for you in your business. And it takes time at first, but once you set it, then now you've leveraged, right? And now you only need to do new tweaks or new things that you want to add to it, but your base of your business is set and going. And that, frees
Mm-hmm.
you up to actually do real estate.
At the root of everybody doing a big business, if you're a single agent doing 50 to 60 transactions a year, which seems crazy, but it's completely doable. If you're a team doing hundreds of transactions a year, I guarantee the bedrock of all of those business is a system that's simple and easy and automated.
I mean, it looks like it would work really well for a team, even of three,
Yeah.
possibly
Yeah.
even two.
Just
but
two,
mostly-
right?
Oh, for sure,
Yeah, mostly three.
But
it
even
seems
just,
like,
but even just
finding different
the
guys.
assigning the lead thing is a huge thing. Like if I'm seeing an open house or if I meet somebody somewhere, whatever it is, and I get a lead that comes inbound and it's automatically assigned to a certain tag and to a certain drip campaign, that's
Mhm.
like,
That's cool.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do them at the open.
How many people go back after their open house with their sheet into their contacts, into their database management system, and then turn around and send an email and a text and a call following up, right? What do most people do with them? They go and set them on their desk and then, they're off doing real estate and forget about that.
Yeah.
System does it for you.
Exactly. Cool. Thanks, Austin. Before we go on to our next segment, I want to introduce Ramona. She is our new commercial director.
Yeah.
Come on up. Come on up.
Get out of the way.
Either side.
We're gonna
Right,
ask questions.
Okay. I was not expecting.
I know.
this, So,
But
Yeah.
this was always good. That's how we do it here. Everything's unexpected.
okay.
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, we
Well,
keep
then,
things
yeah,
fresh.
We'll get
Yeah.
along
Well,
right.
exactly.
It's not
so
scripted,
good.
we just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, So, everybody.
So tell us a little bit about your background in real estate.
Okay, so I've been licensed over 22 years, which is hard to think. Grade school, do they allow that?
They do.
Yeah, do they? Okay, cool. Yeah, I started, I was in telecom before, interior design in telecom and, the telecom industry being what it is. A friend's mom said to me, hey, you'd be good as an agent if you got your license, I'd hire you. And I thought, it's nice of you, like, really, you'd hire me? So I got my Oregon license. I lived in Vancouver. I grew up in Oregon, got my license, went to work, soon found out like a solo office, so I went to Remax at the time. Keller Williams wasn't around. So I spent my first 10 years there and then went to Keller Williams. And for the past 8 years, I've been in a leadership position, team leader, most recently of the Keller Williams office in Vancouver. And I've done all kinds of real estate, from commercial to land acquisition to residential and I am a certified coach. I spent some time pouring a lot of stuff into my brain. So what's cool though about this what you guys were just talking about, if I can just interject.
Yeah,
Dr.
absolutely.
Mann,
Please.
systems. So Atomic Habit is what he talks about in that book, is how, like we all have goals, right? Like, and if just having a goal was the only difference, we'd all achieve a goal, but it's what it comes down to are the systems that you have in place to achieve that goal.
Love that.
And that's the power. That's why I'm here at Keller Williams still, is because of the systems that are in place to help people achieve those goals.
That's cool.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
gonna have two roles,
2 roles.
helping us grow the commercial,
Yes,
and she also coaches, as she mentioned.
that's good. Why am I here? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
tell me about the coaching, like, what do you expect to do?
So I've helped with the productivity coaching in the past, and your role's big, right? But once you get through that, as a new agent, is what my coaching does is I help, I'm a leadership coach. So I take you, like all that and expand and kind of where that leaves off, to expand your leadership within your own team. What does that look like for your own business? And how do you level up with your own personal branding and your money mindset and all of that? So I've got tons of tools to help you. They're not necessarily always, Keller tools, but they really go together very nicely. It's the same language, or the same things are said, just maybe slightly different language. And so so I'm available for that, once who have left the program and like, hey, I want to get to that next level. What does that look like? As well as having those conversations and being, I guess is what I've been calling it, the liaison between the commercial team and residential agents. So knowing how to have that conversations with your clients in your sphere of influence, to know, like, what does commercial mean? What are the different segments of commercial? What tools are available? And how to uncover those opportunities, and then have the conversation with the commercial team, so that your clients are best served.
Right, so she'll be the tip of the spear, so to speak, of anyone that has referral for a commercial person. She'll help place it with our correct commercial person who has that skill set, which will save a lot of time. And so I guess that's kind of your fourth activity. So you're managing, but that's a big part of the managing is the liaison with the residential agents, with the commercial agents. In terms of the coaching, we probably can roll out a synopsis of how that's going to work next month, right?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so maybe
Yes.
first week.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Because we want to get that rolled out right away, because I think there are people, what we're trying to do is provide our agents with options for coaches. We've had Rick Gray down here.
yeah. he's-
Andrew Anderson has spoken a couple of times down here. Now we'll have an in-house coach, certainly MAPS coaching. Hopefully Austin will be a MAPS coach for technology in the next month.
Wow,
And so
Yeah,
cool,
that's what we're trying to do.
awesome. Well, welcome. We're excited you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Like super excited. I would come down here and think, oh, I want to be part of that office. And so it's a blessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Austin. Yes, we are. Stacy Hartzler.
Do you want?
So,
Do I know?
so last week we did a postmortem on a deal with Barbara,
Oh, I'm going.
and I thought it was cool. So I thought, let's do another one, and we'll bring Stacy in. So Stacy had I think challenging would be an understatement of a transaction that she just recently closed. And I think it might be kind of fun for us to kind of go through it, talk about now that it's over.
It's funny now.
And talk about what happened, how you got there, why the choices were made that were made, how you protect your clients, all that stuff. So you had a deal.
Mhm.
It was a $1.2 million listing. You were presented with an offer. It looked good. Ish.
It's okay.
It looked okay.
It's all right. We can
And-
work with it.
And your clients accepted it.
Yeah.
And that's when it all got crazy.
Well, I want to start and just tell you guys, like, so the house is listed at 1,295 and buyer came in at 1 million. We countered back at 1,255. Buyer came back and said, no, is there anything better you can do? My client said 1,225 is our bottom. That's where we're at. And a lot of this was verbal back and forth between the agent and I. And the agent and I had not a great experience from the jump on a different transaction. So it should have been a little bit of a red flag for me. So that was a little bit of a learning lesson. But agent calls me and says 1,225 doesn't work. Best of luck. Okay, thanks. And about 3 days later, the buyer himself called me and said, we really want this house. He is in tears on the phone. And he's like, is there anything we can do? And I said, you really need to talk to your agent. I cannot help you negotiate in this. Like, you got to talk to your agent. Well, he's blah, blah, all these things. Okay, but you need to talk to your agent. And I said, well, we came back at 1,225 and he said, what are you talking about? So the agent never even told him about the lowest offer that we would accept, which was pretty frustrating for everybody. So about a week later, we got another offer at 1.2. My clients have not lived in the house for almost 2 years and they live in another country now and they're just kind of done with the whole thing. And they said, you know what, let's just do it. It's as is. We're not going to do anything. They need to know that. Let's take it and move on. So that's kind of how it started.
So I've got a slide up here just showing that the financing section, they clicked conventional and that they had to attach a pre-approval letter and that there were no additional financing contingencies tied to the sale of the property at all. Also hit the next slide. We also have a pre-approval letter here, or at least a snippet of the pre-approval letter.
Mhm.
That just is pretty standard with the standard, language on the pre-approval letter saying, hey, here's the purchase price. It's subject to them qualifying and not getting a loan for a new boat, so to speak, or whatever, right? So nothing, no red flags at this point.
And
Nothing.
I called the lender and I
You
said,
can call the lender.
I called the lender
Right.
and I talked to her and she was very nice. And I said, do they need to sell a house in order to buy this? And she goes, nope. And I said, everything's good. They're qualified. You're sure? Yep, they're good. Okay. I asked the agent as well. Do they need to sell a house in order to purchase this? Nope. He's going to sell a house because he really wants it. They're just going to sell off one of their rentals, but it's not a requirement. Okay, great. Sounds good.
It wasn't a requirement. It turns out it was a requirement that they
Turns-
sell
turn-
3 houses.
Turns out it was a requirement that they sell 3 houses,
3 houses.
not one, 3.
So how did you find out about that?
About 10 days before closing, I get an addendum, just a blank OREF addendum that says sale is contingent on the successful closing of these 3 properties, 2 in Oregon, 1 in Washington. And I was like, what the heck? And so I called the agent and said, hey, what's going on? He's like, well, you know, I told you that they were gonna sell this thing, blah, 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 just a bunch of crap, basically. And I said, this was not disclosed. I asked you about this. I called the lender back and she says, well, yeah, it needed to be contingent. Is it not? And I said, I talked to you about this. She goes, yeah, they have to sell 1. I'm like, but he's now making it subject to 3. So I think what they were trying to do is figure out which one they could sell first. So they were making it contingent on all 3, but it turns out it wasn't 1, it was at least 2 that they had to sell. So this is a lot of back and forth between me and the agent. I basically responded to that email and just said, you need to fill out the contingent right to purchase form. No, I don't want this blank addendum. This doesn't do me any good. And he questioned me and I said, well, timelines are set. There's closing dates. So there's things outlined in here that needs to be addressed. So he sent that back to me.
Very wise, by the way.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sent it back to me and we sat on it for a few days because he had told me, the agent had told me 2 of the properties were already pending. And I said, I want to see the contracts. And I'm in the meantime, by the way, my clients are in like Southeast Asia. So there's a fairly big time difference, but we're getting on phone calls and we're talking about what's going on. And they say, you know what, if it's contingent, that's okay. Like they're very realistic people. They're like, that's fine. We can work with that if what they're doing is telling us the truth. Okay, fine. So he sends me 1 contract. It really was pending. It was in the RMLS pending. Second house, not in the RMLS listed, even though contingent right to purchase says it is. Not pending, obviously. Third one, not listed. So we just have a lot of defaulting continuing on and on and on. It was about 4 days later, I had added a section in the contingent right to purchase that says seller will accept the contingency if buyer releases all their earnest money. Because at this point, it's already sellers. It doesn't matter, but it's $10,000. So would go to small claims court. And I think the agent knew that. And they were just trying to ride it out to get these closed, and we'll just close when we close, which isn't fair to anybody. I mean, especially my clients. So I said, here's the form. He does not call me back. Oh yeah, there's what I wrote. So we needed to have both contracts. We needed to have the earnest money released. And then the closing date was to be, from the time that we wrote this, the closing date was like, I don't know, a week later or something. So he comes back to me and says, oh, so it's your way or the highway. And I said, no, this is what the seller would like if you want to continue with the transaction. And he said, I never recommend my clients release their earnest money. And I said, well, your client has defaulted over and over again. So the earnest money is really no longer theirs. You're not in a position to negotiate on this. So you can release the earnest money, or you can let me know that you don't want to. And he said, so you're telling me how to negotiate with my client? I said, not. I'm giving you the option from the seller. And at this point, like, we're no longer speaking because it's just getting too
You're all
convoluted.
email at this
We-
point.
Text messages, but
Text
yeah.
messages, same thing.
And he is not happy with me, period. Like, he's mad, but it's also his fault.
Well, that's interesting, right? So it is his fault. It's funny in this industry how we run across people who make all these errors and will try to blame you for it. And maybe it's just a negotiating ploy, or maybe it's just they just can't see the error in their wisdom. But But I think that's really difficult. It's a whole thing you have to deal with, right? So there's so many lessons that come out of this situation. Can I ask you this? Do you think it would have been better for your clients if the earnest money had been over $10,000?
Yes.
Yes, because
It would have not gone to small claims court. This is what you and I have talked about. It would have gone to mediation arbitration. So lawyers involved, things are happening that are bigger than just your small claims court, getting that tied up. Cause it's gonna take a long time to get
Mhm.
that out. And if they want to have any kind of fight, they can really.
yeah. So this is why earnest money is so important when you're accepting an offer or representing a seller, because in the sales agreement, it is in both the Oregon Realtor sale agreement and the ORF sale agreement, the seller's damages are liquidated at the time the offer is accepted at the earnest money amount. So the only money that the buyer can lose is that earnest money. You can't go after them for anything beyond that. Unless you go to mediation arbitration, in which case you can stick them with lawyer fees. And so, which can be probably more than the $10,000 earnest money or $10,001 earnest money to find out. If you go all the way through mediation and arbitration, go all the way through that, you're talking about $20,000 to pay that off. So it's a much bigger stick. It's a much bigger threat to the buyer to perform. So there's times I think when, as a seller, you want to have that earnest money more. There might be other times where you just want it to be easy and go to the small claims court and have an easy fix to it. But I think you're right. In this case, it would have been much better to have a higher earnest money amount.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that was the lesson that I learned. Like, this is, I think every transaction we learn something new. That was my big takeaway from this one. In no way do I think the buyers are lovely people. So did the seller. The seller really thought highly of them.
Yeah.
This was an unfortunate situation of a lender that was not honest, and then an agent that was just reckless. I will say this about the lender though. When I called her and asked her about it for the second time, she said, "Oh no, they have to sell these. It should have been contingent. That's true." And I said, "This is not a failure of financing. I do not want to get a letter from you saying they no longer qualify." And she goes, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do that."
That's cool.
So that was nice.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Some kind of ethical.
Yeah. After the fact,
Yeah.
once we get the offer accepted, we get ethical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I notice here that you say buyer shall release all earnest money to seller. Why did you put that in versus just saying earnest money to become non-refundable no later than 1 business day after mutual acceptance of the agreement?
That's probably a great question. I don't know. I wanted it released to them. They wanted them to have it in their bank account. If they just say non-refundable, I don't know that if that language.
You still would have you would still have to get the seller's agreement, the buyer's agreement to release it,
Mhm.
or a court order. So this way they have the money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a good point,
And-
because I just went
yeah.
over this with another
Yeah.
agent to the office, and I conveyed the same thing, which is if it goes into the pocket of the seller, then it's a very different negotiation when they want to close the deal.
Mhm.
If it's still sitting in escrow, the escrow company is not going to release it if the seller calls and says they've defaulted, you need to send me that money. In fact, if the seller sends them all the paperwork and says, see, they defaulted, they won't send them all that money. They're going to need either a court order
Mhm.
or they're going to need a signature on both sides. So in effect, that you can terminate your bond and the seller will not get any money.
It doesn't. Yeah.
And with
And you may end up in mediation arbitration over it, arguing over the 10,000.
Right.
That could be, 5 months later.
and if you're a buyer and the only thing you're facing is small claims court, and in small claims court they can't award a penny over $10,000, it's all set. So
Yeah.
like, what do they have to lose by going to small claims court? Nothing.
Yeah.
So
So
getting
I-
the money in their pocket was a great move.
That was a great move.
Mhm.
And when I'm representing sellers, I've learned many years ago to get that money released when it becomes non-refundable, so that, because I can tell you 100 times how it changes the negotiations later when the seller already has their money.
And you did it when you had the leverage, like when the buyer wanted to move forward with a transaction.
Yeah.
You said, okay, if you're going to move forward, these are the terms
Yeah,
we're
that's
comfortable
the
moving
moment they'll
forward with.
agree.
That's when they will agree. Because if you waited like until something else happened, it wouldn't have the same.
Yeah.
effect. So
When it starts to unravel, they'll never want to give their money
exactly.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this happened, they got their earnest money wired to them like 2 days before closing. So it wasn't even really that long, but it was more about the buyer. Like, we wanted the buyer to agree, like, have some stake in this. and knowing we we're gonna move forward. I mean, they were gonna, it would, who knows, what if, but they had defaulted so many times that money was absolutely due to the seller.
Absolutely.
So.
Good job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And yes,
So then with language, would it be advisable to say buyer shall release all earnest money in it to become non-refundable? So have non-refundable also in that, or?
That's what I do.
yeah,
So it's very clear that
Yeah.
they can't fall back on the lender being a friend and writing that letter that says they no longer qualify.
Mhm.
And then they claim that they should get their earnest money back. So when I do it, and it will be non-refundable for any reason.
Yeah.
Right?
like it,
And
yeah.
that way
It's very
they
clear.
can't claim any reason to get it back. If
Sure.
you don't close, you don't get your money.
but getting the earnest money is having it in your seller's account is the trump card on that. So
Yeah.
yes, you're right. Saying it's non-refundable, although they breached the contract 6 ways to Friday. So
Like on everything.
on like everything, like every step.
Like
of the,
on everything.
yeah. So
They missed their inspection contingency deadline and then we're like, well, we need to, and I'm like, you can do it. I don't, whatever. They didn't end up doing a well test, a septic test, a home inspection. They didn't, like, they were just so poorly represented. I feel very bad for these buyers, but the house is in great shape. It's just, it's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, the part of the challenge of entering a slower economy is that you're gonna start to see some agents will compromise on those sorts of things.
yeah,
And so as a listing
get deals
agent
done.
or a buyer's representative, you have to be doubly careful of everything you're doing in a transaction because it's trust but verify in that kind of environment. So if you hear that, oh, that's an open space, you better verify it's an open space. If you hear that there are no easements or encroachments, you better look at it and make sure and walk the property line to make sure that somebody doesn't have the fence in the wrong place or a barn that encroaches over a fence line, things you can obviously see. Because if you have an title insurance for that and you could obviously have seen it, the title insurance doesn't apply. FYI.
Yeah.
So, and I've been there.
thank you, Stacy. You have to,
Oh.
don't you have to jump out?
There you go.
10:45.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, so we'll just do one little, I've got a couple deals I've seen this past week that I thought we'd talk about really quick as well. But I want to say this first. So this is something that occurred to me the other day. We've just come out of this historically hot real estate market where lead genning and writing offers that were competitive were the key, right? If you were a buyer's agent, you wrote a term, you figured out how to waive an appraisal and waive an inspection contingency and write a high offer, and you got deals done, right? And it's just the nature of the business forced buyers to get transactions done and do things they wouldn't have done otherwise. We're not in that market anymore, okay? And so now we've got a lot of agents who only know that, and they don't know how to do the other stuff. They don't have the mastery of the other skills that go into writing a bankable deal. And so I have a couple things here I thought I'd go through. And I just talk about, I like to pull up these terms. I'm gonna be hypercritical for these because I'm gonna pull out one thing that's bad, but I might as well pull out all the hypercritical things that I don't like about it. So this one, this term here says, buyer still will be obtaining an appraisal, purchase is subject to appraisal being of equal or greater value. So does anybody have any comments on why this term is a little wonky? Well, the first thing that pops to me is equal or greater value of what, right? What's the litmus there? What point are we going to go? Hit the next slide for me, Austin.
And timing is always helpful.
Timing is pretty good, right? So there's some real gaps in this. Okay, so because it was done in section 6 and not section, and this was on a vacant land agreement, so they're a little skewed up here. But instead of section 3.1, which is a financing contingency, it doesn't really create a contingency except for what happens to the refund of earnest money, which says any condition the buyer has made an express contingency in this agreement, handed has otherwise been waived, fails to no fault of buyer, right? So this sort of allows for the buyer to get their earnest money back if we can establish what that value is. But the thing is, in section 3.2 of the sale agreement, it provides directions on what happens when a contingency fails. But since this was done in section 6 of the sale agreement, not in the additional financing contingencies, this may or may not actually apply. So we don't really know what happens if the property doesn't appraise at whatever value that's supposed to be. So it's technically, if you could say, if you believe that the appraisal was meant to be on the purchase price, based upon the purchase price, that the buyer could have all the way up until closing to hold the seller hostage to negotiate a change in the purchase price, as opposed to the remedies that are given in section 3.2. Right. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like this for the seller. So because of a lack of contracted procedures to cure this contingency, there's no stipulation on how and when the buyer would have to notify the seller if the property done appraised at or above the purchase price. There's no time frame that would limit the amount of time the buyer would have to come to terms with the seller regarding the new purchase price. Therefore, the buyer could maintain their interest in the property until closing. It's assuming that you thought that was a valid contingency. So why is this bad for the buyer? Well, I don't think it's a valid contingency. So the buyer may be thinking they've got this feather in their cap that they're going to have this appraisal done sometime during the process. And if it doesn't come in at the value that they think it should come in at, that they can walk away from the sale, which may or may not be true. So we need to be more specific when we write our contingencies. And this isn't one we wrote. This is one that we had inherited from a buyer's agent. And if I were to rewrite this, I probably would have just put it in section 3.1 and said this sale is contingent upon the lender's appraisal not being less, or an appraised value not being less than purchase price. I would have done that. It'd been super simple. It would have added all the other language in the sales agreement that applies to these failed contingencies, and we would have had a really clear contingency. All right, we have one more here. Buyer will provide seller with an agreement to occupy after closing. First 14 calendar days will be at no charge. Additional days not to exceed 28. In total, seller will pay 1/30 buyer's PITI. Besides just the grammatical errors in this, does anybody have any issues with the way this is written? This is my hypercritical brain at its best right here, or worst. Okay, well, I'm gonna start with PITI is like a slang word, right? It's not actual term that is in the sale agreement. So PITI, you're relying on a seller to understand what PITI might be, and what if they don't? And what if their understanding of PITI is different than the buyer's understanding of PITI? Okay, so there's my first issue. Let's go on to the next slide, Austin. Okay. So while the PITI is recognizable as industry slang, it's not really defined in the sale agreement. 2, the buyer's broker indicated a possession date different than the closing date, and therefore the boilerplate language in the sale agreement stipulates the use of the OREF agreement to occupy after the closing. However, the agreement is amended in section 23. The buyer's broker should have referenced the addendum properly. Since agreement to occupy after closing was not capitalized, it's referring to a theme, not an actual addendum. So there's another issue, right? That could be any old document that someone could pull out at a later date because it's not actually using the capitalized term. I know I'm getting a little ticky-tacky here, but if we're talking about contract law, it needs to be specific. Okay. And then what is the actual rate for the 15 to 28 days? Because on the occupancy agreement, it's listed as $100 per day. But in the agreement, it's PITI. Right. So which one is it? Does I have a problem with that? Okay. And then when must the seller notify the buyer if they wish to exercise the extended 14-day term? Right? Because it was kind of vague in the agreement. So we need to be specific. So this is how I would have written it. All right. Seller shall not pay rent for the first 14 days of the term. The term is a capitalized term that's put in the occupancy agreement. Okay. Seller may exercise a right to occupy the property for an additional 14 days, making for the total term 28 days, at a rate of 1/30 of buyer's monthly payment of loan principal and interest, property taxes, and property insurance, herein PITI, per day. Seller shall notify buyer in writing within 5 business days after closing of seller's intent to exercise the additional 14-day term or not. Buyer shall notify seller in writing no later than 10 business days prior to closing of buyer's PITI. So I think that covers it, and it's specific. And like, I don't want to encourage you guys to write a lot of extra language, but when you're changing the terms of the contract and you're getting creative, give me a call and we'll write something that is 100% understandable, that doesn't have questions, that is enforceable, that is clear. Because like, the worst thing that happens is when we have one party expecting one thing and the other party is expecting another, and we get towards closing and they don't mesh. That's when everything falls apart, people, right?
Yeah,
Any
where it
comments?
says, yeah, absolutely. So where it says seller shall notify buyer in writing within 5 days of the closing of their intent. I learned as a seller's rep that you have to put that in. Because they'll wait every time.
Right.
The last minute.
Yeah.
And then the seller will come back on you and say, well, why did we structure a deal where we have no idea
Yeah.
what our timeline is to move out? If we had a few extra days, it would take a lot of pressure off. Now I have to take
Yeah.
5 days off from work, and that's gonna cost me $3,000 or whatever, right?
I have a deal.
I've had that all happen. And so I started inserting that language that we have to know by X date.
Yeah, you have to tell when.
And
Like
if
I have
they
a deal
don't
going
tell
right.
you, they don't have the right.
I have a deal going right now where we're contracted to close on like the 4th, and the seller has possession until the 7th, but there's been chatter about closing early. And just that chatter has my buyer all up in arms, like, when are we going to close? What date's it going to be? It's like, well, we're contracted to do this at this point, but he's more concerned. He likes to know what it's actually going to be, right?
Yeah.
And just imagine if you had this term that was super vague and nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
So, anyways, if you, like I said, if you start going off you start writing, you start filling in blanks on additional provisions, and you're writing more than 2 sentences, you could probably give me a call. Unless you're really, really secure with your technical writing skills.
I'm almost thinking it might be a good idea for us to come up with a couple of pages of these things and just put them in our KW agents
could.
as a tab.
Yeah.
People can click on, and then
Yeah.
they can read them really quickly.
Yeah, just put it
And
fill in the
decide which
blanks.
ones they need.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, we did that before. The company I was at before, and,
Mhm.
you know, there were like 3 pages of things that people ended up
Yeah.
adding at different meetings.
Yeah.
and There's a lot of value in it. I think coming into this time, it
Yeah.
would save a lot of grief for our
Yeah.
agents and their clients.
Well, I think in the last 2 weeks, I've written, and I appreciate it. You guys have been calling me and asking me questions, and I've written 2 or 3 contingencies unique to the situation. And I'm happy to do it. I like to do it. And I think it's really like one of the values that I bring to you. You know, checking your paperwork is monkey's work essentially, but like, and it's all done after the fact. But like, this is something you call me, I can actually help you now. I can avoid the trouble ahead of time. So if you have any kind of question about a term, or if you read something that doesn't make sense in a sale agreement, or you think that's not specific, give me a call and I'll help you tighten it up. And thank you. Yeah. Have a wonderful day. And do you have anything else?
I have nothing else. Have a wonderful day or week. Why are y'all in town? My wife told
Because they're
me
gonna go
this
sell
morning,
stuff.
it's raining all week, and we need to be somewhere else.
Because they're staying here to sell,
Staying here.
helping people out. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.